Hi, we're Lauren and Craig, and we're on a road trip along Ireland's wild Atlantic Way in Helga, our vintage campervan. Join us as we explore the wild side of County Kerry, from snow-capped mountains to storm Barra. We caught the ferry from County Clare, and then a short drive led us to the really cute village of Listowel, where all the buildings look like a piece of art. Our first hike was up Mount Brandon, and we took a really narrow ridgeline which ended up being quite dangerous in the drizzly weather we had, so we had to abort the plan halfway through. We were cold and wet, so we headed back to Helga for a nice hot chocolate. Ironically, the next day had much nicer weather with these cool clouds drifting above the mountain, and the ridgeline managed to just stay out of the cloud. But we had plans for a different hike today, so we made our way up Brandon Point, where we set off on a trail up to the cliffs. I noticed the clouds were still wrapping around the mountaintops, so we quickly had to run to try and capture it. It was so beautiful how the mountains were just capped in this white cloud, but it was windy as hell up there. The weather began to turn on our way back with black clouds looming, so we quickly made it back to Helga for a nice hot lunch. It ended up raining for the rest of the afternoon, so Craig decided to make some white chocolate cookies. And we heard some creepy noise coming from our boiler cupboard and thought a mouse was going to jump out, but it didn't. The next day we headed down to the colourful village of Dingle. Nearby was the scenic coastal drive called Sleehead, which is a 90-kilometre detour, and we weren't sure if we wanted to do it because we've already seen a lot of coastline and thought it might be the same, but in the end we decided to give it a go, and I'm so happy we did because it was our favourite drive in all of Ireland. It led us to the most western point in Ireland, which is also the most western point in Europe, and the scenery was really impressive with sheer rocks rising out the sea. We spent the whole day enjoying the sights along this beautiful road. And then we parked up in a little beach car park where we could see these huge waves crashing outside our window. It's almost December, so the weather's getting pretty chilly now, so when we had boiled eggs the next day, the steam was rising off them, but the sun must have hit them at the same time, so we had rainbow eggs. I've never seen this before. I'm pretty sure it's a specialty to Ireland. Anyway, we finished the scenic Sleehead Drive and continued south where we spotted this beach which we had to pull over and check out. I think it's actually one of the only beaches you can drive on in Ireland, but we didn't dare take Helga down there. Instead, we treated her to a new tyre at this mechanic's.
We are having lemon sugar pancakes because neither of us are feeling very well. We figured we'd get vitamins from the lemon. Genius.
Hey,
Oh no.
that half's mine. Oh, it fell.
Our next stop was Valentia Island, where we got a lot of rain. It suddenly chucked it down and we had to take shelter under the sign during a hike. In the afternoon, we detoured to O'Shea's pub, which is a fake one used for a Guinness advert once and is just an abandoned building now. Our final stop on Valentia Island was Bray Head, where we had a mix of sun and rain. So I got my best shot at my signature rainbow photo. Now it's time to leave the coast and head back to the mountains, and we're so excited to make our way to Killarney National Park. As we drove over a mountain pass, we got our first views of Ireland's highest mountains. We were absolutely shocked to see them covered in a dusting of snow, which was so exciting. So we spent a few hours up on this pass enjoying the view until sunset, when the hills were glowing orange. The next morning we woke early to drive into the national park and start our hike up the highest mountain in Ireland at 1,039 metres. There's lots of different routes up the summit, so we opted for Brother O'Shea's Gully and then the zigzag route back down. We had hoped to take a more challenging route to the summit along a knife-edge ridgeline, but it was just too dangerous to do in this weather. We would have needed crampons at the very least to do something like that, as it was really icy at the top. The views were absolutely spectacular though. We got some amazing views of the ridges around us and all of the snowy mountains. This is definitely not a sight I expected to see in Ireland. I was really just envisioning it being green pastures with sheep and lots of coastal walks, not snowy dramatic mountains. And albeit there was some cloud drifting through, we were extremely lucky with the weather to have cloud-free summits. After that wonderful hike, things were about to change as Storm Barra was on its way. We opted to bunker down near the Gap of Dunlow, and the day before the storm came, we went for a little stroll where we saw this very aggressive male sheep.
Oh. Where are they going? Oh!
Oh my god.
She's trapped now.
We picked a nice sheltered car park where we would stay in for the next day while we waited out the storm. The wind was gusting up the road near us, and all the rainwater laying on the road would just whip up into the air. We were given a red warning for Storm Barra with 135km wind gusts, and people were calling it a bomb cyclone, which was basically barreling towards Ireland and intensifying. Schools were closed for 2 days and everyone was advised against non-essential travel. So with all that considered, I think we picked a pretty safe space to park up in. The van was shaking around a bit in the wind, but honestly we've had much worse. So we just spent the whole day relaxing inside Helga, listening to Christmas songs on the radio and baking cakes. Craig knocked up our favourite new recipe, which is a courgette cake with a cinnamon crumble. The next morning we checked Helga out for any damage, but she was looking pretty good except for a few leaves stuck to her. The storm was downgraded to a yellow warning and we were now allowed to drive places, and seeing as it didn't seem too bad out there, we decided to go for a hike. It was unbearably cold in the wind though. It was so chilly up there that we had to abort the hike halfway through and just head back. It was such a beautiful day though, as we had storm clouds and blue skies fighting with each other. We weren't too sheltered this next night, camping in a different spot, and Helga's wing mirrors were flapping about in the wind. The next day we decided to drive to the village of Sneem, where we started a hike into these hills, and the wind was insane again. It still offered impressive views though, and was our final stop in County Kerry before we make our way into County Cork.